Please listen carefully.
All right, Coach Justin. So we're going to talk about base camp, and we're going to talk about what that is and what that means and why it's important. So I'll just begin by saying that whenever someone comes into our group class, they have to go through at least 3 and sometimes more private sessions in order to feel comfortable going into the group. So for us, it's a bit of an orientation. And the reason that we call it base camp is that for a number of vacations that Diddy and I have gone on, they have been mountain trips. And so whenever you're hiking or trekking, our logo is designed after rock cairns, so the stacks of rocks that you would go see hiking. And back in the day before GPS and maps and even maps, the cairn symbolized where to go on the trail, right? So you could see the next cairn off in the distance, and you go to that one, and then you can see the next one. So there were trail markers. So the idea of base camp is that, particularly when we were climbing up Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, there are 4 different routes to go up Kilimanjaro. And one is super technical, like only professionals pretty much will do that one. And then there are, I don't want to say easy, but just more manageable ones where it's more of a walking, trekking style, and then there's 2 like in between. So there's 4 different routes. Either way, everyone meets at base camp. So the mountain is 19,000 feet tall. No matter what route you take up the mountain, you all meet at base camp before making a final push to the summit, right? So the idea of our base camp is that no matter where you're coming from fitness-wise, whether it's being a couch potato and not doing anything at all, to being a former collegiate athlete, to whatever, anything in between, everyone's coming from different fitness journeys and health and wellness journeys, but we all meet at base camp before getting into the group class, because we know the group class is usually more complex and intense than what people are used to. So we don't want to throw people right into group class without giving them some exposure, some acclimatization, some orientation to everything that we do, because we do Olympic lifting, gymnastics, pretty complex stuff. We want to show them the basics and the foundations, and then once they're in the group class, they don't feel as lost and they don't feel as overwhelmed. So that's the reason why we call it base camp. But Justin, maybe you can talk about what it actually is in each session, and then maybe your perspective from having run so many of them and coaching people through.
Right. So the base camps classes that you'll do here, at minimum doing 3 classes, usually about an hour long. So it's a great personal training session in a sense as well, one-on-one with the coach, covering what we call the 9 foundational movements with this style of functional fitness. The first day will cover squatting techniques, starting with an air squat, just no weights, just using your body, and check your mechanics with that, and then expose you to some other types of squats, maybe holding a PVC pipe or a barbell, depending on someone's comfort and training experience, and then continue to move through other variations on that, what we call a hip extension, where you're standing up out of the bottom of a squat, which would be the same thing if I were to stand up from this bench. So by the end of that first class, you've done some different squatting, you've done maybe some jumping onto a box, and then even squatting, holding different weights, whether it is a PVC pipe or even a med ball. And so it's not, the goal of that first class is not necessarily to see how much can you back squat, or how many reps can you do with a certain weight. It's more to look at the mechanics of your squat, to see the depth look at hip mobility, ankle mobility, what's your comfort with those movements, so that when you get into a group class, you have an idea of what's an appropriate way for you to approach a workout. If you've never done any back squatting before and you come into a group class a week or two later and the workout has back squats, you'll know from base camp that you're not going to put a barbell on your back, but maybe you'll hold some dumbbells, or maybe you'll hold a single dumbbell or kettlebell and work on your squatting with a little bit of load. Or we can look at other variations like squatting to a target, like squatting to where you touch a bench or a box to work on that depth. So it's really not about making you an expert in those base camp classes, whichever one, the first, second, or third base camp. The idea is not to get you so familiar and teach you through all the movements. That way you can come into a class and jump right in and not even need the coach, but to get you exposed to the different movements, see what your comfort with them are, and then maybe get an idea of like, all right, when you come into a group class, these are the things that we're going to want to focus on. So we look at squatting, we look at overhead pressing, and then horizontally pressing. So lifting a bar overhead or a med ball, and then different things like a push-up. And then we'll look at your pulling strength, so far as can we do pull-ups on a bar, or will we change that to a set of ring rows where you're leaning at an angle and pulling yourself up. We'll also look at some of the Olympic lifts to see your ability and mechanics with those, getting you underneath a PVC pipe or a barbell and see how does your body move with those. That way you are not seeing them for the first time in a class. I think that might be a good way to describe it, is that over the 3 base camps, the goal is not to make you necessarily proficient in each of the movements, but to expose you to them and to let you see what do they look like and how might you want to work on them in a group class. Because nobody is becoming an expert in the base camps, and then 2, everybody in every group fitness class that we do is working on the skills as well. Whether it's somebody who's been doing CrossFit or this kind of training for over 10 years like Chris, or somebody who's new, everybody is still learning and continuing to develop the skills in every class.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about CrossFit, about things that we do here, is that someone has to come in and know or have already done intense exercise before. And I think a lot of people go through base camp surprised that there are 4 different ways to do pull-ups. They might not be pull-ups the way you imagine them from a bar and you're lifting yourself over, chin over bar, because honestly, most people coming in will say that they can't do that. So what we do in base camp is show them, hey, here are 3 different other ways to be doing some sort of upper body pulling, starting with what we call ring rows, but a lot of people out there are familiar with like TRX bands. Mm-hmm. And then once you say that, they're like, oh, okay. And then once you show them the different progressions that we will do, including like low bar pull-ups and negatives and possibly banded strict pull-ups, it expands their mind as to what's possible and gives them this repertoire and this toolbox of things that we can use. But I also like that you said the group class is being coached and you're still learning, even for people who have been doing it. I mean, you started what, in like 2009, 2010? Yeah, so I started in 2008. Like, I'm still working on skills and movement because that never goes away, right? I mean, you have Olympic sprinters who are working on their sprinting technique for years and years, and that's only running, right? Like we do that plus gymnastics, plus Olympic lifting, plus jumping rope, plus rowing, plus cycling, plus like it never ends. It never ends. What would you say to someone who comes in and, they're like, oh, I already lift, or I already, I go to the gym and I squat and deadlift, or I did this boot camp, or I don't need base camp.
That's a good question. I think I would, if someone talked to me and said that they were interested in joining Kanna, thinking about it, but weren't sure exactly if they needed base camp, I would invite them to come and say, well, let's at least do one, and let's see your form, let's see your technique, and then let's also talk about what are the group classes going to look like. Because somebody might be used to going to the gym and doing, they know how to use a barbell. So they're used to going and doing back squatting and spending an hour doing that, or an hour on deadlifts or bench press or something else. And our classes are going to look different than that. So far as maybe we'll spend 10 or 15 minutes doing back squat or bench press or deadlift, and then get into another workout in the same 1 hour class. Right. And so helping people learn like the way that we do base camp, where we're learning the skills for a little bit, exposing you to the different movements, and then finishing the class with a workout ranging from 3 minutes to maybe 8 or 10 minutes, and showing people that that's part of how the classes are going to be as well. Yep. So even if you have some familiarity with the Olympic lifting, and in that first base camp we realized, yeah, your technique still looks good. Mm-hmm. We still want you to know what to expect going forward and what a group class would look like. That, yeah, we're not just going to spend an hour on hang power cleans or snatch or something like that. Even if you're really proficient with them, yep, we're going to combine them in a workout also with running or jump rope or pull up or something. And you'll get some of that exposure in the base camps, and then really get a sense of how you would want to approach the group classes, and whether or not this is the right fit for you.
Yeah. And I would say for people who are coming from, let's say, a CrossFit affiliate where they have learned these foundational movements and are doing AMRAPs and EMOMs and pretty much the same methodology that we do, then we do offer a test out, right? So not everybody necessarily goes through 3 sessions. We have people who do 1 session as more of a test out, where we verify that they are aware, that they know the movements, that if we say hang power clean, that they know what that is, as a way to basically prove that they can get into a group class in a safe way. Because at the end of the day, it's about being as safe as we can be, but also knowing the economics of being in a group class is just more favorable for most people, rather than doing one-on-one sessions all the time, right? So our group class, we cap at a very small number of people, because to me the group class is really just personal training in a group setting, in the sense of they're getting coached, you're getting feedback, right, you're just spraying out amongst 6 to 12 people, depending on how many people are in the class, right? But no more than 12. So so that's the economics of the group class. Base camp, yes, could be tested out for people who know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I almost always find, though, the people who say that they know what they're doing because they've been at LA Fitness and they squat and deadlift and whatever, they generally come in with limited range of motion, very much unaware of a lot of the gymnastics related things, right? Because maybe they lift, but they don't do any sorts of gymnastics related things. And then simply just the culture and the way that we do things, I feel like is also a big piece of that, right? Of base camp.
So I think that's a really good thing to point out, that if somebody is coming in from a sense their training history experience, going to a big box gym, a Crunch, an LA Fitness, a Bali or whatever, and you're working out on your own for extended periods of time at different stations, when we come in here, everybody is doing some form of the same workout. In that maybe it's a workout with push-ups, jump rope, and dumbbell overhead press. People have different abilities and strengths that we'll discover and talk about in base camp. And then some people in those group classes will be doing push-ups to a bench or a box. And some people will be doing jump rope with single unders, and others might be doing a double under where the rope goes all the way around twice. And then for some people, they're going heavier with an overhead press. And then some might even be holding something with two hands just because of stability. But it's not going to be some people working on that and then others off on their own on the spin bike or doing something else in the same group class. And so that's something that we'll cover in the base camp classes. Right. We talk about what do the group classes look like so far as when you come in, where to put your things, how to check in with the coach, how to go over what the workout is going to be for the day, what to expect, what equipment to go ahead and get ready. So it's not just covering the movements and seeing someone's proficiency, but letting them know what are our classes going to look like, what can they expect so many days a week, and think about what's going to be the right schedule or membership, if you will, for them so far as how many times a week is going to be good for them to come in.
People are generally intimidated and scared by what they don't know. And so to have someone, a coach like yourself or any of our other coaches, walk them through, even though they're technically the basics or the foundations, the more familiar people become with those, the less intimidated they are by it, right? Down to like barbells. Like many people come in without having ever touched a barbell at all. And so just the simple fact of, or if they have, they've only seen the 45-pound bars at the big box gyms. And so the fact that we have PVC pipes, 15-pound bars, 35-pound bars, 45-pound bars, just the fact that there's that range of weights to use, and then obviously the range of movements becomes more familiar to them and they feel more comfortable knowing that they're, number one, in good hands, but number two, that it's okay and expected that they do a progression of whatever the movement is in the workout rather than needing to do this hardcore workout that they see on, ESPN because they see the CrossFit Games. They think that everyone doing CrossFit does that. Right.
Yeah. I think that the progressions is a really good point to focus on. Base camp exposes people to the different progressions of a lot of different movements. Like Chris was saying earlier about the pull-ups, and I was saying about the push-ups, that some people will do push-ups from the ground, others from a bench, others from a box and different heights. And we have a lot of other different movements where there are progressions along the way based on your training experience and strength and comfort levels. And so people get exposed to those in base camp, and then they know in the classes, oh, well, some people are doing this, but they don't have to do that same level of movement. Some people are going to pull the barbell from the ground. Some people are going to pull it from just above their knees in what we call the hang position. And everyone's working at their ability, their range of motion, their training experience and strength. And I think that's a good thing to really emphasize in the base camps, that's something that they see in base camp, and that's something that will continue in the group classes.
Yeah. To me, it's the biggest thing that people don't understand from the outside. And once they are within our ecosystem, they get that there's, number one, there's 6 different set workouts, but even beyond that, the coach is there to guide you into possibly mishmashing our different levels and colors through the level method. And then also, if a workout has running and also lifting, and maybe they're a great runner but not as good a lifter or a novice lifter, that it's okay to run the longer distance today because that's your strength. But we also know that we're still learning the movements of the lifting, so we're going to hang back a little bit and do a hang power clean or whatever the case may be. Connor at home has been learning chess, or he learns it in school, but we had heard about it from Eli and Layla that they use the storytime chess, which is this board that's a chess board, and the storytime chess comes with this book that tells them stories about each character. So like King Shaky is really afraid of the outside world and afraid of getting hurt. So he has pillows, a castle made of pillows. And so he only steps one space in each direction, right? And, Clip and Clop are the knight, or the horses, and they do 2 and then 1, or 1 and then 2. Like there's a story, so it teaches chess through story. So base camp to me is like sitting down at a chessboard. And in a case where we just throw people into a group class, it's like sitting down someone at a chessboard that's never played chess and then telling them, hey, you're gonna just play. And it's like, well, wait, I don't even know like what to do, like how to move these pieces. So to me, base camp is the equivalent of learning how to move those chess pieces. Not that we expect people to be grandmasters by any means at the end of that base camp, but just simply knowing how to move pieces for chess, and then likewise for us, how to just do the foundational movements, allows you to even just play the game, right? And then over time, you're going to get better at that game. For us, working out in chess, obviously chess, because there are so many different moving parts, literally, and it's that pursuit of getting better. Maybe like I'm not going to be a grandmaster or a chess master, right? Or grandmaster in chess, right? But I can work on being better based on wherever I am right now, right? That's how I see our group class. It's like, even though we have these levels with level method, like some people maybe getting to brown, black, red level, like that is just something that they can't comprehend, and that's okay. Like we can just focus on the next little step to get better in whatever our weakest part is, right? Weakest part of our game. And that's something that came to me as we were talking of like, the reason we do base camp is simply because if we otherwise just threw you in the group class, people would feel intimidated. They would feel like they're failing. They would feel like they're not good enough. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. It's just, we know that the methodology works of combining, these movements and these shapes and forms of AMRAPs and EMOMs and for times and changing up every day so you don't get bored. But we need to introduce them to the movements first before they can even learn them.
Yeah. I think one part that you were mentioning as well about we use the level method. There are different levels to help what we call scale the workouts so that some people will know, okay, I need to run this distance in this amount of time, maybe a 200-meter run in less than 2 minutes. And in the same class on the same day, somebody else is going for a 400-meter run in less than 3 minutes or 2 minutes. And then in the same class the same day, somebody else, different training experience, different abilities, is going for an 800-meter run or a mile run even. And we'll talk about that a little bit in base camp, but we'll also get to know the people who are coming in to figure out what, like Chris was saying earlier, experience. Some people haven't touched a barbell before, some maybe college athletes, but also what are you interested in? What are the goals? Why come here?
Right.
Do you want to get better at golf, skiing, tennis? Do you have some outside sport that this would help? Or want to get in shape, whatever that idea is for you, lose weight? Doctor said this is what you need to do to get healthy. Those are also the conversations that we'll have during base camp, so that some people can get a better idea. Coming in and level method can be a little overwhelming, but if people know, like, my goal is to get better at squat. Well, I'll use me personally. For rugby is my sport outside of here, so there's some stuff with the level method that is great for me to learn and practice because of the benefits of developing and learning a skill. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to put as much attention to them because of my emphasis on my sport-specific training. And so there are some people who think, well, I'm never going to get to a brown or a black or a red or whatever this is, But if we know that your goal is to get better at whatever your sport is, or to feel more comfortable picking up children or grandchildren, or rehabilitating a knee or a hip surgery, then we can step back and say, all right, well, that's okay. That up there is not our goal. Remember back what we said in base camp, that you want to be able to do this better. So let's focus on what we call virtuosity with those skills, like really being uncommonly, doing the common uncommonly well. Yeah. So I think that's another important aspect of base camp, is getting to know the people who are coming in, letting them get to know the coach or coaches that they're working with, so that they really have an idea of like, how is this going to fit into my daily life?
Yeah, why are you here? You do a really good job of this, when you're coaching, of asking people what their intention is. Like, what do you want to get out of this? What is your intent? Because not everybody, some people use this as their thing, because this is their hour away from the craziness of work and home and all that. But other people have things that they're using this to supplement, right? Sports or life, or yes, it could be just simply life. But that means that not every day should be like hammering it as hard as you can, because maybe today actually the best thing to do is just come in and move because you're sore, or you need to work on this movement, or I think the sign of someone who's been doing this for more than just a year, and a sign of someone who is kind of matured in their thinking of the types of things we do here, is someone who can come in and treat days differently based on whatever it is that they need and how they're feeling, and not have to hammer it every single day, because that's honestly where we run into things like injuries, overtraining, and then just simply not making progress, because maybe the limiting factor is mobility, and so maybe you should actually stay light on this movement in order to work better range of motion, rather than trying to go as heavy as you can, but then stop just at parallel rather than like going well below parallel. Yeah. Right. Any last thoughts on base camp?
Personal experience with a recent base camp. We had a father and son client come in.
I was going to ask you about that.
And they didn't have the schedule to do hour-long base camps for a set in their day. So we broke it up into 9 half-hour base camps where we extended a little bit more, gave some more time to focus on the movements, teaching and going over them, and then putting in a workout with each of those classes as well. Yeah. So we expanded it to 9 half-hour personal training sessions where we took care of base camp like that. Yeah. And I think that may have been the first time we had.
That was one of our more extended ones.
Yeah.
There have been some people who have been like just them one-on-one for a few months, and then they get into the group class. Like Susan's a good example of that. But it was cool because father-son, teenage son needs to get onto virtual school, or so they could only come in the morning, and dad wanted to get in and work out, but they had this idea of wanting to get in the group class, and it just worked out with your guys' schedule of doing, 9, right? 9 half-hour sessions to get them familiar with the movements and also give them the workout, which got them used to the formats of the types of workouts that we do.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are options too.
Yep.
Let us know when you come in for an intro. You'll talk with one of the coaches, one of the staff here, and we'll figure out what would be some available times.
Yep.
And then get a coach assigned to work with you. And we can be flexible, whether these are 3-hour long, which is the traditional base camp design, or if we need to extend those a little bit longer and shorten the classes to work with your schedule as well.
Yeah, the 3-hour long really is based on a lot of the stuff that we go through as coaches through the CrossFit Level 1 seminar. We use that as a template to divvy out the 3 sessions, but ultimately it's about doing whatever's best for the person coming in. So if what's best is actually more sessions because they feel more comfortable working one-on-one and eventually getting into group, great. we'll work with that, right? If someone is like really itching to get into the group, then yeah, we're going to put them through a minimum of 3 sessions. And if someone is transferring from another affiliate, then we'll put them through a test out. But either way, everyone has to go through some sort of orientation simply because, we're a community. There's a certain culture here. We want to, get them in. When people go off to college, there's an orientation. And it's that idea of like when you get onto a college campus and you don't know where the buildings are, like you should have an orientation to where the buildings are and what your schedule is and all the little things. And so at the very minimum, there's at least 1 session, but yeah, for a lot of people, it's 3 or possibly more. So.
Please listen carefully.